Yeah, photo booth has been quite nice to us so far. DIY.
We use everything the computer has, 2 mics and 2 chairs, but
Yeah,
we need more
IKEA chair.
people.
Sponsored by IKEA. No.
Yeah, cut, let's go.
We have to do the intro.
Hi there, I'm Mirey,
I'm Özgecan,
and we are 2 Kazakhs living here in Berlin.
and this is our nomadic lives. Hi Mirey.
Salim.
Salim, қалайсың?
Күшті.
Күшті?
Күттім. Yeah. Ұзақ күттім.
So Mirey's been waiting a very long time for this episode. By the way, we've been told not to put the microphones in front of our faces, in front of our mouths. We're really trying.
Yeah, we have to adjust. Okay,
So one thing we really connected over when we met was our love for Kazakh indie music. That's like especially coming out now. And then through that journey, I think we started discovering like the songs that we know in common and the songs that I don't know because I didn't grow up in Kazakhstan. But then also we had the Tilo, so a sort of birth party for my second child, for my son last year. And my youngest sister, who's also a singer, she sang some traditional Kazakh songs. Also some newer ones, actually, but mainly traditional ones. No, I think she only sang
traditional ones.
Yeah, she sang a lot of traditional.
They sounded so different.
Yeah, different.
Very modern. Yeah. And that was the day when I told you, we still, in our community, we always, this expression through music is present, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah. And the thing is, the other day I also went from our community to an engagement. And because I was saying, like in one of the episodes, in the earlier episodes, we were talking about how I felt that creativity isn't that much encouraged anymore in our communities. But then, and it's not true. You know what I remembered at that engagement was that our elder appas, so the women, they will sing. Like if they know songs, they will sing. And she sang like 2 or 3 really traditional songs at this engagement. And then it reminded me, oh, actually, no, we used to do this. It's just not done as much anymore. And I think it's that particular generation that would have sung these songs at weddings or special occasions. And the unfortunate thing is just that most of the younger generation just don't know the songs anymore. But that being said, we have these Kazakh kurultais in Europe. And before they became really, really big, because at some point, obviously, the diaspora changed with lots of people moving from Kazakhstan also to Europe. But before that, we would have, like these kurultais were these big congress of Kazakhs. It was usually just the community that moved from Turkey mainly, and then also the community in Denmark. But there, we would have these little folklore groups. The girls especially, the boys would play football. I mean, it was very gendered. Very.
Football is huge.
Yeah. And so like all the, different cities, football teams would join and have a tournament, but then the girls would do a performance mainly. And I was actually in one of those folklore groups talking about Karajorga, because Karajorga is a very traditional dance from the Altai region. I mean, wider Altai region. Obviously, there are others who also dance it. And then it became really popular when that YouTube rendition came out, which was, I think, also from the Altai region because the scriptures in Arabic on the video. And then it became really big in Kazakhstan suddenly. And this dance that we were already dancing for, I don't know how long, was suddenly being danced everywhere.
Yeah, Kazakh traditional dance that was saved, well, quote unquote, abroad.
Yeah.
But like within the community and brought back. Yeah, I remember that time. I was a student or high schooler, but.
So fascinating that was kind of preserved outside of Kazakhstan and then brought back once we had independence. But back to the folklore and in the folklore groups we would have, like back then we didn't even have that very popular Karajorga. We had a live dombraşı person who would play the dombra or a recording on a cassette of the Karajorga dombra kü, and we would dance that, and then we would sing like Kamajai and dance that too. And then there are a couple of songs that have been really preserved from our community. And there is one particular song especially which is very, very dear to my heart, and which is there are indications that it was written by our specific community and our migration, which is Altai Agajai.
That one is so beautiful.
Yeah,
I remember Chopin singing it, and yeah, it was a very touching moment.
It's basically the lyrics are like Agajai Altai Daijir Qaida, and it's, you know, like where can we find another land that is like, you know, with its beautiful mountains and streams and clear water that is just like the Altai, and it's sort of this farewell to this place that has been their home for a very, very long time. And, you know, crossing the terrains into very, very different climates to, first of all, going to India and then Pakistan and then Turkey. So that song is very much alive, I feel like, in this collective memory from the community. Yeah, and then we got to talking about these traditional songs, and for you, how it was to come across them again. Do you want to?
Yeah, as I was telling you, those songs really unlocked some very young memories in me, because whenever toy celebration happens, and I'm also curious if here in your community it's also like that, when Toy Bastar comes, the, how we call it in English, the gifts from the celebration, and then each table or guests are asked to sing a song. And these songs that I heard at your celebration here, I knew them from our Ajé and Apas. They would hear traditional old songs, and you know how songs really have a different, you know, the vibe, energy to it, and sounding when it's elder generation singing. And then I would like, this is interesting, beautiful. And I knew all the words because I used to hear like so many times. I never learned the words, but hearing them again as if revitalized with this young voice of Chopin.
My sister Chopin.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was really beautiful. And those songs are beautiful. Like Did Mai was there, Agajai Altai was there, and I remember the
Samal. Oh God, did she sing that one? I forgot the name of it, but Dimash. She sang a rendition by Dimash.
Yeah, we will just add the name.
Yeah,
it's so interesting that we are deeply, deeply united again by this music. And I was curious and always asking. So back home when I was growing up, whenever any small gathering happens, I remember my parents singing the songs, and mostly it was the composer Shamshi Khaldayakov songs. And I would ask you, do you know this song and do you know that? And they're like, no, we don't sing them. And then I was like, for me, those songs, and Shamshi Khaldayakov was a composer during the Soviet time, right? And then there is the music band Dost Muhasan, and their songs are also really connected, associated with the celebrations. And but then they're not played here because it was the time when borders were closed, no internet.
Yeah.
But then you still kept the old folklore.
Yes, and so yeah, because like I said in our first episode already, diaspora groups on the one hand are like almost frozen in time because they bring the culture, and that's sort of the only access to the culture, and on top of which we didn't have the internet. We didn't have access due to the Iron Curtain, to what was coming out of Kazakhstan. And so literally it was the only things we had. I mean, we have, like, I actually have it there. It's a little book of songs from the Altai region, from our specific community that we brought with us. And so those were sung over and over again. And once the borders did open, what happened was we started getting cassettes of like Dombra, like play. I remember one of my uncles, he would only play like Dombra music in his car every time he brought us somewhere, and we would listen to it. And just, you know, to this day, and like Dombra music is so moving because it tells a whole story without any lyrics. It doesn't need any lyrics at all. And you know, whenever I go to a concert, I get so moved by it, just sort of the emotions, because there's something so ancient in there, and it's almost like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's almost this sort of this soul.
It is the language of the soul.
Yes.
And in Kazakh we call it ki. And do you know the story that actually, I will support your point, and it is moving because every key, and I'm not a musician, but I learned it also from my teacher. And there was even this, they did within the seminar with the key and like the story of bringing back the stories of several, how we call it, songs. It's not the songs, but the
instrumental music.
Yeah,
right?
the instrumental music. And then how people, it was this non-verbal language of the soul, the expression, the communication. And then at many different life situations, there is a key related to that. And then people would even, there are fairy tales and stories how with the key people would deliver stories of like if there's a situation of mourning or grief, of loss or of happiness, and it takes a huge part in like Kazakh philosophy, literature.
Actually, yeah, now that you mention that, you know the whole legend about the hole in the dombra, right? If you look at a dombra, there's a hole in the middle, and there's a whole legend around it that the Khan, Allah Shah Khan. And there are different renditions of it. This is just one that I know.
So his son went for hunting. And,
for Qulan,
for
which
Qulan.
is like sort of a
Aksa Qulan is the name of
Qulan. Aksa Qulan, that's the name of the music.
Yeah.
And you can probably find it. But yeah, Aksa Qulan, so his son goes to hunt for Qulan, and then, which is like a hybrid between a donkey and a horse. Sort of animal. There was this story going around that there was this Qulan who was very wild and no one could tame it. No one could catch it. So his son then says, I'm going to be the one who hunts it, and goes out on a mission to hunt the Qulan. But then, of course, this Qulan is so powerful.
He makes him run. He gets him tired and then kicks him to death. And then his dad,
the
Khan searches
looks for his son and sends his men out to find his son. And he says, whoever, you better find my son, but if you come to me with the news of his death, I'm going to pour lead into your mouth.
Yeah.
He's as a punishment, because obviously he doesn't want his son to be dead.
No bad news should be delivered.
Yes.
And then that's the beauty of the story of his men find the son. Then they don't know how to deliver the news. No one wants to be punished.
Yeah.
And then in that village there is the composer and musician who agrees, he says, okay, let me
deliver the news.
And he doesn't do it verbally.
No, so he plays the dombra, and through the music the Khan finds out that his son has died. And then he says, you delivered me bad news.
Yeah.
You delivered. And then the musician, the composer says, I didn't deliver it.
No, I didn't say a word. It was the dombra. And then
the Khan
pours
lead into onto the dombra, making this hole into the dombra. But that's how powerful the dombra music is. And yeah, I'm always, because I don't have a musical background either, but it speaks to me in such a strong way that this sort of ancient mode of storytelling, it's absolutely fascinating.
And also the tradition of actually saving the folklore through the music and passing it on it was present in my family, in my personal story. And my dad would play the dombra. And now when I live far from my parents' city, and whenever I miss home, or whenever I have the mood to have guests like the Kazakh way with all the dastarkhan, it's the dombra music, kiler. I turn it on, and it just brings me back immediately to that feeling of togetherness, belonging. And it's very beautiful. My dad would always play it. We didn't have back then like Spotify or no internet, and TV doesn't always play the music that you want. So live music, dombra was, I think, the way of him and like the parents affecting and creating these neurons, the attachment. And now, unfortunately, I don't play, but yeah, I think the sound of dombra has this wide step, not only image, but the sense of.
Yeah, and it's very, like, even when you listen to Kara Jorga, which is, the Black Stallion is the name of it, the movements are that of the stallion, and then the music of it is imitating the sounds of the stallions who's sort of beating the ground. And this is, true for almost all of the also orchestral music that is written by Kurmangazi. And when you go to a traditional Kazakh orchestra, you literally feel like you're being overrun by hundreds of wild horses, or just also the sounds of birds. And it's very tied into nature, but also this human appreciation for the nature. It's just so... Yeah.
It's also, now that you mentioned Kara Jorga and the symbolic of it, the way our people are always were connected to their horses. And then even hundreds and thousands of years ago, when Han or Batar passes away,
like a warrior chief.
Yeah. He would be buried with his horse. And then so that in the other world they're together. And now when the Kara Jorga dance is like, I'm remembering it is just such a like nature wild way of expressing and living and letting your soul speak. I don't know,
but no, this is true. I think it's like, as a fluent body teacher, right?
Yes,
there must be so many connections that you're...
I'm just seeing so many...
You might need to do like a fluent body Kara Jorga to release all those tensions within yourself.
Implement that into like the classical... Yeah, absolutely. I'm having so many insights right now.
Ideas. Sometimes when like Kara Jorga is being danced, I've seen this happen so many times at weddings or whatever, like... people lose themselves, really. I've seen people just completely in it with their eyes closed, dancing away. And you're like, hey, can you come over here for a second? And they're completely gone. Like, you need to go and be like, hey, hello. Like, I need you for a second or whatever.
Amazing. Yeah. And it happens during the celebrations, like the gatherings, big gatherings, right? Yeah, now I see these two images of like a celebration happening here in this community and like Kara Jorga and all the power, different songs. But then toy back home in Kazakhstan. Well, it's a huge industry, right?
Yeah.
And like hundreds of people.
Toy being like celebrations. A toy is a celebration. It can be a wedding. It can be someone's 60th birthday. It can be
the birth of a child,
of a 1-year-old.
Many reasons. And then, well, it's my like personal point, but now there's a little bit of too much of that, I feel like. But the good side is when people, if they go there, it's like the meaning is very beautiful. You can go there and you like this communal power of being together for like raising the energy during the dance to release and live and to really be together in this moment. It's a fascinating, beautiful story. And it's something unique about our community, I think. But at the same time, I see how it is challenging to organize when you don't have when you're far from Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan has over there we have all the services to organize it. Huge. My always going critique about people every weekend being busy with like celebrations and not having time to just relax, rest and reflect.
Did I tell you once when I was working in Kazakhstan and it was like a Sunday evening and it was like 8 p.m. and my friends there gave me a call. They were like, hey, we're going to go to the cinema. And I was like, it's Sunday. I'm in my pajamas. It's 8 p.m. I have to work tomorrow. And they were like,
hello?
They were like, what do you mean? Like, you're not, you still have time. You can still get up in the morning and work. And I was like, but it's Sunday and it's 8 p.m. I'm not going to leave the house now. They're like, you're so German. And I was they were like, why are you thinking work now? Work is tomorrow.
And as if you can just bring yourself to work and take the time to recover there.
Yeah.
But I think it's stealing time from your work and from like actually being productive, and those who wait for you at work. Yeah, I'm definitely very, very influenced by this German culture.
Of being in your pajamas at 8 p.m. I was flabbergasted, and I think they were also kind of like, what is wrong with her? I was like, you should have told me yesterday. I would have, but yeah. I mean, it's got its beauty to it too, but I think I'm just too used to my ways.
But now I remember connecting all the toy celebrations, and I remember first time when I encountered and learned about the dance, and when I saw actually my fellow students, like they were not my classmates but from different groups during my university bachelor years. And now I remember I didn't have guts back then to ask, but I know that they were kids of Khandas Kazakh fellows who moved back, who returned to Kazakhstan, and then they danced Karajurga so beautifully. But then I was very young and very ashamed to cross some personal borders and be like asking, okay, tell me more about you. And I wasn't asked and approached and asked many questions, but I think there are. How do you think?
Yeah, this is relating to the term Oralman maybe as well. So repatriates to Kazakhstan who returned after independence, who had, under difficult circumstances, mainly fled the country, first of all, during Stalin's purges in the 1930s, but then also due to the famine. That was actually one of the most terrible famines in the world and has completely understudied. And if you want to read more about it, there's the book by Sarah Cameron.
Yeah, The Hungry Step.
The Hungry Step. And it meant that a huge proportion of the population fled Kazakhstan, went to places like Uzbekistan. There was a huge minority in Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, China, among others, and Mongolia. And actually, Sarah Cameron also says that proportionally, Kazakh famine, so in relation to the population of the people, the deaths were worse than those in the Ukraine. And there's been a lot of studies done on the Holodomor in the Ukraine and its effects, its causes and effects. But hopefully now in the next years, there will be more and more, I think, there will be more light shed on this really dark chapter of Kazakhstan.
History,
yeah. Of Kazakh history. Speaking of which, have you seen Kash?
No. No.
So I think a year or two ago, I Sultan Seat made a movie about it, kind of in the genre of like this horror, I think. But I haven't seen it, so we might talk about that another time. And yeah,
please come to Berlin.
Yeah, like speaking of, can we like have a screening in Berlin, or at least let us stream it here somehow? I don't have Kino Paisk or whatever it's called.
Yeah, and then there's they have it on I think one of the streaming of Kazakh Telecom, which is not here. Also, we would be happy to.
Yeah, like we really want to watch all these movies, guys. Also, Bakht, I want to see it too. And like, just maybe we need a streaming service just for Kazakh movies. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Side note.
Please hear us out. Bring us something. Oh my God. Now, like, Kazakh cinema is getting big and huge. No, but yeah.
Yes, back to that topic. So then, because millions of Kazakhs fled the country, Soviet Kazakhstan, they ended up in different countries. And then after independence, many of them were reinvited into Kazakhstan. I mean, this is like there's a huge chapter on Kazakh demography that we can also maybe open up in another episode. But to shorten things quick and short, there were also a lot of ethnic Germans who were repatriated back into Germany because Stalin kind of used Kazakhstan as his place to displace all the people he didn't want in Russia. So ethnic Koreans, ethnic Germans,
Polish people,
Ukrainians, all of them were resettled, relocated into Kazakhstan. And after the fall of the Soviet Union, Germany actually accepted many, I think over 1 million, I'm not sure, ethnic Germans back into Germany. And so for a while, the population in Kazakhstan was fluctuating. And then ethnic Kazakhs were reinvited into Kazakhstan. And we touched upon it in the first episode as well, when you mentioned this Iranian Kazakh who returns to Kazakhstan and has this issue with the language. Not speaking Russian. And then these stereotypes that emerged on Oralmans, to the point where Oralman nowadays is considered a negative word. Yeah. It has a negative connotation, which I completely don't understand
The word Oralman itself, it encapsulates beautifully the
return.
The return, it is the person. Oralman is literally
the person who returns.
Who returns, yes.
Yeah. In itself, it's a neutral word, but there have been terrible stereotypes.
Well, when I was growing up and when I was a student, there was so little information, like official information. I knew I didn't have, unfortunately, the neighbors next to me living Oralmaz with whom I could have interactions and be and know their story, know what they're going through. But I knew from relatives, from other acquaintances who had the neighbors, who had in their homes and apartment houses newcomers, and interesting stories of them bringing baursak and then asking something but not knowing the Russian. And then, it's still present now, but 90s and beginning of 2000s, I think still the role, the position of the Russian language was very high. Yes. And maybe there was a misunderstanding from the people who were coming back, and they were not able to connect and communicate only in Kazakh. And then I can guess that there were probably questions not asked, and then could be read and understood as something negative attitude towards them personally. But reality is it was a whole huge story of 70 plus years when people learned the hard ways that for you to be somebody in the city, for you to really work and succeed, get position, something very mundane and simple, you have to know Russian. And you really, that was a survival mechanism almost. And I know I already told my personal story that my parents wanted, and it was important for me to go and learn and study in Russian. But I didn't encounter personally, because I was already born in post-Soviet and grew up, but people who were working and living during that time, and everyone at the university, academic world, or any other professional realm, Russian was the way to go.
Yeah. And I mean, I almost feel like, I don't know, but can you, if you want to be successful working professional in Kazakhstan today, can you get by without Russian? I have a feeling you cannot, on my personal observation. I mean, maybe some people disagree with me here, but I'd love to know your opinion.
Personally, I didn't have to face any struggles with Russian, and I didn't have to work for some company and be judged on my language skills. But I know that in Almaty, in big city, or in Astana for sure, work is done primarily very much in Russian. And my personal experience is when I was working in Astana, I had my small studio, and then Astana is northern city, the capital of Kazakhstan, which used to be very Russian speaking. And my husband's family is from there, Russian-speaking Kazakh family. And when I opened my studio, and people would come, and it's the communication, the services being done, they fill out the form. And I was shocked how people were shocked that I can actually connect in Kazakh. If someone comes and says "Salimetsizbe, hi" in Kazakh, I will reply in Kazakh and be okay, and I will explain everything in Kazakh. And it was several times the occasions when people were so you're not from here, you speak you speak Kazakh.
Wow.
It was so easy to give this pleasant dose of shock. I think now situation is different, it's changing, but no one was, I guess, during the 90s in the northern Kazakhstan was really, how to say this, the word, soothed by Kazakh, being so used and simple, in the city. And I feel very sad right now.
No, don't be. There used to be stereotypes or this negative portrayal or this negative idea around Oralmans when they probably in the 90s, 2000s, but now many of their children have grown up to become full-blown adults who are part of the society's fabric now, and so they don't really have that connotation anymore. And I mean, I have myself, I have relatives who went back and are full, like, you know, they've completely blended into society. They
learned Russian,
are bilingual, but many of them still, I mean, they will, the home language is Kazakh mainly.
I want to add on this point. I think like, well, one of the points and ideas of our podcast and like it's to really talk about this language situation, right? It's as a part of decolonization, but also it's not only us who have this history. And I think that that's the reality of Kazakhstan when you choose to live there, that two languages are present, like concrete. And also because we are like you talked about the history of migration and Stalin time. We have like now more than 100 nationalities living there. Historically, everyone connects with the Russian language.
It was always considered sort of the international language of friendship. I mean, this was the Soviet sort of post-Soviet understanding of Russian being the language of intercultural communication. But then I'm like, why can't Kazakh be that language as well? You know? There is no, you know, exclusion to learning Kazakh.
Absolutely. Now we just have to come to I think that we just have to collectively understand that our brain has the capacity to actually fit all the languages that are there. It's very beautiful. It's going to help us to stay away from many diseases when we are older, and it's good.
It's good for your brain.
It's good for your brain also. But other than that, we can make now the usage of the language shouldn't be used for really stereotypes, segregation, or pushing someone away or excluding or including. No, it's so beautiful. Now I think little by little the Kazakh community on social media is growing. But I understand, we just have to understand and see the wider picture of everyone coming and wanting to be part of Kazakh community.
Yeah, that's the thing. Having spoken to someone who is Russian speaker of a minority in Kazakhstan, you know, they don't feel fully part of the Kazakh society either, because they're like, I don't speak Kazakh. And like when my Kazakh friends, you know, get together, sometimes they say things in Kazakh and I don't catch it. And that's an issue as well, you know?
It's just an invitation, and with time, I think like telling my personal after experience of living here in German community, being in a small town, luckily, not Berlin, but next to Berlin, where most of the people speak only German. And
Mere, not me.
Yes, Gen knows the language from birth.
Oh no, I meant like I don't live outside.
Outside of Berlin. Yes, in Berlin. Yeah, the way that I learned the language just through listening to it again and again, always. And first you learn to divide, like understand where the words are. And then you can type the word to translate it or use so naturally. When you're in the environment, you learn the language.
Yeah.
You know how it sounds, you know the words. And then it's my feeling and my opinion, and my friends who are of non-Kazakh ethnic groups in Kazakhstan, they do understand basic words in Kazakh.
Yeah.
And we make jokes in Kazakh.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's beautiful. It's like language shouldn't stay in between relationships, friendships, and it's only the instrument to connect and communicate. Maybe that's actually my German neighbors and friends helped me by keeping to sticking to German language. And then I would translate that and be like, do you mean that? And they're like, yeah, or nine, or yeah. So it actually helps. I don't know if I could explain.
I think we owe it to the language because of what it's been through. We owe it to the language to try to improve it as much as possible. Not improve it, but modernize it so much so that we can, now segueing into the music topic again, we can rap in it, we can curse in it, we can, you know, do all sorts of jazzy things with it. You know, so it's not like stuck to this old way of thinking, or so it's not frozen in time.
Yeah, language is a living thing.
Exactly.
And then, it just,
you know, I think we watched this interview, I can't remember who with, but where he was talking about, you'll probably remember when I say it, but he says, you know, we have 8 words for camel in Kazakh, but like, what do we need 8 words for camel nowadays in Kazakh? you know?
Yeah. The
Guy's name.
remember.
We need a word for, I don't know.
Ties, please.
Yes, for tights. We need words for headphones. Yeah, we need words for...
Klakap. Do you know klakap?
Is that a headphone or like earmuffs?
Klakap, like you would understand as earmuffs, but I think klakap stays for both.
Really? That's cool. Kolshator. I love kolshator.
Yeah.
Means
and
umbrella.
Again, coming back to music, it's the music, the beautiful renaissance of music that's happening right now. The new album of Yenlik. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
She's like my lemonade this year. Beyonce's lemonade, but Kazakh lemonade.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's so beautiful. And again, the folklore, the music now, the modern is uniting so much because...
Yeah, in the diaspora as well, because we have social media now and we have like, you know, streaming platforms. I see so many from my community embracing this music because they're like, I relate to this. It's modern. It's me. And, you know, also learning a lot of the language through this music and through this poetry of the lyrics that's currently being written.
And do you feel like, well, it clearly unites?
Yes,
it does. But then the root of the message of all the art that's around us, there is a message, like especially in Yenlik's album and songs, there's so much social, like the values, the pain, the desires, and then now that you're saying that the community is relating and being also interested in learning, and does it show, can we agree that what we feel and live through within our communities is very much, it's like this gender roles, many neglects are pretty much shared.
Yeah. I mean, the gender roles, I don't think they've changed much within our community. It's still quite segregated. All the girls and the women are in the kitchen. All the boys, men are expected to go out and work. And although, I mean, there's a shift happening when it comes to child rearing, I find. Like, I do find that the younger men in our community are more involved in childcare than they used to.
Or they're being more invited into by wise women to actually take their parts.
For sure. I mean, but when you still have the sort of like the kitchen and the living room when you have like guests over. By the way, because we do acknowledge the fact that there are other types of relationships than heterosexual relationships, but we're talking about the ones we're surrounded with by now. So yeah, that's sort of where we're at. But speaking of which, I mean, we wanted to talk about stereotypes, and then I don't even know if we managed to kind of solve the sort of stereotypes around the Oralmans and their perception in Kazakh society. I do think there's more sensitivity around the subject happening, but then there's the other way around.
Yes, tell me.
The mirror side of it.
Mirror side.
There's also been huge stereotypes around. I mean, I can only speak for my community.
From personal stories that we know and relate. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and this is also, once again, changing, because I think one thing we cannot forget is that even within Kazakhstan, like the society is changing so fast since independence. Whereas in our communities, I feel like we've kind of been more or less stuck on the same values. I mean, one thing was the importance of religion in our communities was always very pronounced, especially as in opposition to, you know, the Chinese governmental forces at the time. And main reason why they went to Turkey was because of them being Muslim and Turkic. So religion has always played a really important role in our community. And then within that, the traditions, and with the religion, you know, the way a woman or a girl should behave, the role of the men, you know, being the main provider, and the woman sort of being the child rearers, child carers, and also mainly doing the domestic labor around in the house. So when the Iron Wall fell, and then they started meeting their first Kazakhstani acquaintances who, and I think especially the first waves of Kazakhstanis that left, they were most likely coming also from more privileged backgrounds. And what does privilege mean in Kazakhstan? It means at some point someone in the family made it into
Government.
the governmental Soviet apparatus. And what does it mean to be in the Soviet apparatus? And this was an interesting conversation we had with Maddie, your husband, was to show that you did not adhere to the conservative values of the ethnic Kazakhs, for example, in the auls, or people who would maybe adhere to more traditional values, let's say.
I think we can share that. But this is the stereotype.
So the stereotype, I'm trying not to say it because it's like, I don't want to say it.
You gave a good ground to that.
So I'm first qualifying my argument before saying it. But the stereotype was then they know nothing about religion. They don't care about religion. They're not like us. So that was kind of the stereotype. Oh, and they speak Russian. They don't speak Kazakh.
Yeah, Russification.
So then there was sort of this, but not everyone. And I don't want to like make a sweeping generalization either, because there have been beautiful friendships made in that time too between diaspora Kazakhs and Kazakhs who came from Kazakhstan. But, and also we're such a people that we wouldn't say that into your face ever.
Yes,
this is why it's so difficult for me to say these things.
We're trying here. We're trying to really break those walls.
Yes, we want to create a bridge.
Yes.
And this was the case in the 90s, I think early 2000s. So the first sort of contacts that were made around that time. And then, sometimes, going to Kazakhstan and being like, I don't recognize any of my values in these cities I am in, being sort of jarring. Or the fact, like, this was very, very jarring for a lot of people, was that you have a Kazakh dastarkhan with your bishparmak, your baursak and everything. And then there's like a bottle of vodka. And that was, for members of my community, that was so strange. And even if people did drink, they would never put it on the dastarkhan, because that was almost like a sacred space for them, where we carry out all our values.
Yeah. So what I have to say on that? I think it's so important that we try to speak on the stereotypes and and then behind every behavior and action, there's a reason, right? And Soviet time was really, we can say now, it was a colonial time, crucial time of propaganda and of trying to create this perfect Soviet citizen, uniting 16 nations and making them all share values, creating this strong socialist community. And I know from nostalgia of my relative elders, like my grandparents, my parents and aunties who grew up in that time, reflecting and saying so many beautiful good things that
about the Soviet. But imagine everything was provided for you, like the system was built for you to grow up to serve the system, and the government would take care of you, of your child, starting 8 weeks after birth. There were kitas, yasli kitas for such small creches.
Yes, such small babies, and then so that you can serve your country, build your country and continue. And as a psychologist, I can say that the attachment, the connection that a baby has during the first year, especially to the mother, to the elder person, responsible of the person, is so important. And then there is this deprivation clearly that was happening for several generations. And people growing up feeling you grow up to belong. The system makes you belong. There is the group of they were wearing the red scarves. Yes.
The cosmonaut. No?
Yes, the socialist ladder of you, starting from school time, and you kind of, and I think it explains a lot, like the communities, the friendships, the colleagues. These communities have such a strong value, stronger than the family. And then you grow up having kind of maybe many connections, but that one very important connection is absent. And
with your mother.
Yes.
Yeah. Audio and post-production by me, Özgecan.
All visuals prepared by me, Mirei.
Theme track by Dash.
This podcast was filmed and recorded in our home studio.